Hello and welcome. I'm Thomas Porteous and you're watching the World Report on NewsX World. Let's first of all take a look at some of the top headlines. Iran's military and political establishment has declared loyalty to Mojtaba Khamenei, named the country's new supreme leader after the death of Ayatollah Ali Khamenei. The handover comes as the US-Israel conflict with Iran intensifies, with Mojtaba Khamenei regarded as a hardline figure closely aligned with the Islamic Revolutionary Guard. Explosions have been reported in Qom and Tehran as US and Israeli forces continue bombardments across Iran during the widening regional war. Attacks on energy installations have sent dense toxic smoke over parts of the capital. Global benchmark crude has climbed above $100 a barrel for the first time since 2022 as the Middle East conflict enters its 10th day. Prices have risen more than 25% amid output reductions by major producers. Russian President Vladimir Putin has promised unwavering support for Iran's new supreme leader, Mojtaba Khamenei. The Kremlin says Moscow will remain a reliable partner to Tehran as the country confronts what Putin called armed aggression during the escalating war. Iran's foreign ministry says attacks on the country are designed to fracture its unity and take control of its oil resources. Spokesperson Esmail Bakai claimed the operations form part of a broader strategy by Iran's adversaries to weaken the state. The European Union is preparing to sign new security agreements with Australia, Iceland and Ghana in the coming days, according to Foreign Policy Chief Kaja Kallas. She said other nations are also seeking closer cooperation as the bloc broadens its global defence network. Former Istanbul Mayor Ekrem İmamoğlu is set to stand trial on more than 140 allegations, including corruption and leading a criminal network. Prosecutors are seeking a sentence of up to 2,400 years in prison. İmamoğlu and his Republican People's Party reject the accusations. Nepal's Rashtriya Swat Antra Party, led by rapper and former Kathmandu Mayor Belendra Shah, is on course for a landslide parliamentary majority following last week's general election. The 35-year-old also defeated former Prime Minister KP Sharma Oli in Japa 5, a result that could clear the path for Shah to become Nepal's next Prime Minister. We are, of course, ongoing our coverage on the escalating Middle East conflict with the United States, Israel and Iran escalating tensions. We first start this hour in Europe with developments coming out of the continent, where French President Emmanuel Macron has arrived in Cyprus to discuss regional security amid rising tensions in the Middle East. France has deployed warships to the Mediterranean as the US-Israeli conflict with Iran enters its 10th day. Macron landed in Paphos and met with Cypriot President Nikos Christodoulidis and Greek Prime Minister Kyriakos Mitsotakis for talks. Officials say the visit underscores France's commitment to Mediterranean security and closer coordination with its European partners during escalating regional conflicts. Next, we turn to some statements coming out of Tehran, where Iran has accused the United States of sabotaging diplomatic talks before its recent attacks. The Foreign Ministry spokesperson, Esmail Bakai, said the US waged war while Tehran was engaged in negotiations. Bakai added that the US and Israel have violated international norms. He also claimed Washington aims to partition Iran and seize its oil resources. The spokesman insisted Iran remains committed to friendly ties with regional countries. He stressed the right to defend itself if other territories are used against Iran. Responding to reports of attacks on Turkey, Cyprus and Azerbaijan, Bakai denied Iran initiated any offensives. He suggested some reports may be staged to create tension. He described the conflict as a war of necessity, not choice, and said Iran is doing its best to protect diplomatic missions. Bakai ended by praising the bravery and sacrifices of Iran's armed forces. Let's take a listen in directly to his statements.
کشورهای اروپایی در برهه‌هایی متاسفانه به شکل‌گیری این روند کمک کردند. زمانی که به جای اصرار بر حاکمیت قانون، به جای ایستادگی در برابر قلدرمآبی و زیاده‌خواهی آمریکا، با اونها همکلام و همنوا شدند در شورای امنیت سازمان ملل در رابطه با بحث بازگرداندن تحریم‌ها و همه این موارد در کنار همدیگه باعث شد که طرف‌های آمریکایی و رژیم صهیونیستی جری بشن در ارتکاب.
Joining us now to discuss some of the statements coming out of Iran is Sol Sanka. He's a political commentator. He joins us live from Tel Aviv. Sol, thank you very much for joining us here on the broadcast. We saw those negotiations in Geneva over 10 days ago now. They concluded, things were sounding positive, and then the day after, the Trump administration and Israel launched an attack on Iran. Iran's spokesperson there accusing the United States of abandoning diplomacy too early and launching an attack. Of course, things have escalated since then, but this remains a common critical point, that the United States did not give diplomacy a chance. What do you say to those critics?
Well, they would say that, wouldn't they? The Iranians have been negotiating over their nuclear program in bad faith for literally 25 years at this point. Constant deals and offers, and then reneging on the deals and going back on the offers. But all the time, their mission, which wasn't even hidden, was to build up a stockpile of nuclear fissile material, which would allow them to immediately break out to a bomb. And thank God, the Trump administration came around to the view at some point recently, perhaps in the light of the fact that Trump himself was the subject of at least 2 assassination attempts by Khamenei, that this wasn't going to fly anymore, and that these negotiations, there's no reason why America should be held in the highest esteem of good faith to constantly be played by a regime trying to build a bomb. People are not stupid. There's no reason other than wanting to build a bomb that Iran would put their nuclear material, which they don't need because they have so many hydrocarbons, they could supply their own population with power for 2,000 years. The fact they're building this stuff means that they want to build a bomb. And they weren't shy about this fact, really. And this was all one game. And Trump called their bluff. And he pulled the wool over his eyes on that Friday when the Omanis came forward and said, we finally have a deal. But he'd had enough. And to be honest, it wasn't really surprising for anyone who'd been following it closely, but it was surprising for the Iranians. And that was the key. The only way this war was going to get off to a literally bombastic start, complete success, and the decapitation essentially of the leadership of the regime was if the Americans had the element of surprise.
Yes.
And that surprise was achieved via the implication that the talks were potentially still ongoing.
So according to reports, so those initial discussions, Trump apparently was offered a better deal than Obama was in 2015, yet he still attacked Iran anyway. Those are some pretty credible reports that came out of those talks. There are some reports as well, of course, that Netanyahu pushed Donald Trump to launch this attack, something which both parties have denied. Another common talking point about this conflict is that this war is not in the United States' interest coming out of the region. This conflict has been under much scrutiny due to the unclear messaging that the Trump administration, of course, has pushed. When citing those nuclear strikes by the United States back in June at the end of the 12-day war, Donald Trump, of course, saying that those nuclear sites were completely obliterated, then the United States used that talking point once again to launch this conflict. How does one wade themselves through the Donald Trump narrative when it comes to launching this war?
Well, it's important to pick away the politics from the reality. So it could well be that after the strikes in June, which were very successful in destroying the Iranian ability to enrich uranium in the present, but of course, you can never, in a present-day strike, prevent them from doing things in the future. So it was always going to need continual overwatch to make sure they don't try and rebuild. That's the first thing. Also, the Americans were clear at the time that while they felt they had done significant, if not terminal damage to the Iranian nuclear program, the Iranians still were in control of around half a ton of highly enriched uranium that could quite easily be turned into 10 or 11 nuclear bombs. Of course, once a state has 10 or 11 nuclear bombs, well, that's it. They have a nuclear umbrella, and no one can dare attack them in the future for fear of getting attacked by them in return in a nuclear way. So once you have 10 bombs, that's it. So if they would have had 10 bombs, they could have continued and built 1,000. And once they have, of course, missiles capable of carrying those bombs, which they have thousands already in theory, then there's nothing to stop them under their nuclear umbrella, which they would have achieved if this hadn't happened. Nothing would have stopped them from building missiles which can not only reach Europe and India, as the current ones they have do, but they could have easily built missiles to reach America. And what are you going to do if they start building those missiles?
So
you're not going to be able to stop them because they already have the nuclear umbrella. So that's why we're very lucky that, you can criticize Donald Trump this way or that way and say maybe he is telling fibs here and there. It doesn't really matter. In the end, we're very lucky that this has happened, and maybe it was Netanyahu that persuaded him, maybe he wasn't. All of that would be to Netanyahu's credit if it was his. Because if this hadn't been done, this hadn't been done, the inevitable result in the future, if not now, but in a year or 5 years, would have been a nuclear Iran. And these are not normal people. These are people that crave Armageddon. They want chaos in the world, and they want war. And they're not joking when they say death to Israel, death to America. That really is their creed.
So apologies, we are running out of time. Thank you very much. Do stay with us. We're turning over to another update, this time coming out of Europe, where Iran has accused European leaders, including France, of contributing to the escalation that led to US and Israeli strikes against the Islamic Republic. Tehran claims that rather than upholding international law and checking American pressure, some European nations supported discussions at the UN Security Council on restoring sanctions. Iran says this move created conditions that emboldened the United States and Israel to take military action, further intensifying the conflict in the region. The Foreign Ministry insists that European decisions have indirectly encouraged continued attacks, deepening tensions and making diplomatic resolution more difficult. The European Commission President Ursula von der Leyen has said that the EU must be prepared to project its more power assertively, as it can no longer rely on a rules-based system against threats and must determine if its institutions and systems help or hinder its credibility. Let's take a listen in.
But at the same time, these attempts to label today's world mask two tangible and structural realities which are far from important for Europe. The first is that Europe can no longer be a custodian of the old world order, for a world that has gone and will not return. We will always defend and uphold the rules-based system that we helped to build with our allies, but we can no longer rely on it as the only way to defend our interests.
Glenn Grant is joining us now, an ex-advisor to the Defense Minister of Ukraine and geopolitical commentator. He joins us live from Riga in Latvia. Glenn, thank you so much for speaking to us. Pleasure's all mine. When Iran accuses the European countries, in particular France, to contributing to Donald Trump and Israel's conflict in the Middle East. Do you think that statement holds any weight? Do you think that these European countries were indeed complacent when it comes to Iran?
Complacent, maybe, but I don't think you can say that they were involved in this in any substantial way. I mean, you heard when the whole thing started that Spain said they were not going to get involved, and Great Britain pulled back initially, and I think that the others all just sucked their teeth in because, that Europe wants to hold on to the rules-based order, as van der Leyen said, but Trump and I'm sorry, but Israel as well ride roughshod over that and don't care about it. And on one side you can say, okay, they're taking a realistic approach, but then there are limits. There are limits to this. If that realistic approach is that you just keep pounding away at another country, even long after your stated objectives have been supposedly passed, then it's very, very difficult to see going back how Europe could be complicit in this in any way, shape or form, because I don't see anybody in Europe agreeing to this at all.
Glenn, in terms of the rules-based order, do you think, and the fact that the European Commission President von der Leyen says that Europe is still going to continue following it, do you think that puts the bloc on the back foot when it comes to situations like these?
No, I don't. I mean, I think that you've got to have some sort of of ethos to underpin what you're doing in countries, and the rules-based order has kept Europe from fighting each other solidly for the last period, so it has got some benefit, but I think that people have got to be realistic that Trump and Putin have crashed it. And messed it up, but that doesn't mean to say that we should throw it out and go along with them, because most people don't actually agree with what they're doing. And you could say the rules-based order died when, after the Soviet Union, Russia was allowed to keep its place in the Security Council, and look at the mess that they've done ever since. But that doesn't mean we should stop it. It means that perhaps we should reinforce it and try and get harder with it.
Brilliant to have you, Glenn. Do stay with us. We're turning over to another update where Russian President Vladimir Putin has pledged unwavering support to Iran's new supreme leader, Ayatollah Mojtaba Khamenei. He was appointed after his father was killed in US-Israeli strikes. In a message, Putin said Russia has been and will remain a reliable partner to Tehran. He congratulated the new leader and expressed confidence that he will continue his father's work with honor. Putin added that Mojtaba Khamenei will need courage and dedication as Iran confronts armed aggression. He reaffirmed Russia's solidarity with Iran and its commitment to stand by the country during these challenging times. Glenn joins us once again. Are you surprised with how vocal the Kremlin is being on this situation, particularly due to, of course, the new relationship that the United States and Russia have seemed to grasp during Trump 2.0?
No, not at all, because the two things are, you could say, separate. I mean, Putin is extremely thankful for Trump raising the oil prices, because that probably allows him to keep fighting for another year, because he was really under pressure a couple of months ago with finances, and now he's been thrown a lifeline by Trump that is, frankly, a dangerous lifeline. But I mean, if Putin said he was, supporting me, I think I'd run a mile, because although he's got masses of shahids from Iran, he's also promised Iran lots of weapons and things that he's not actually produced. So he's not actually been a particularly good partner in this deal so far. And frankly, I don't see him getting any better.
Why does Russia keep Iran close in the way that it's doing, and particularly in times like these?
Well, I mean, basically because it doesn't have any other friends. Russia's group of people that support it is growing smaller by the hour, and Iran has got some world-class engineers, many world-class engineers, and Putin hasn't. So Putin's numbers are limited in that respect. So any support he can get from the engineers of Iran are to his benefit. So he's going to keep working with that, and also drones, if he can get drones from them as well, and missiles. So that it's a friendship that he needs. Let's just say that.
Glenn Grant, thank you so much for taking the time. It's always a great pleasure to speak to you on these issues. We're now turning to some further breaking news coming out of the conflict, but this time from Iraq, where in another escalation in the US-Israel-Iran conflict, an airstrike has hit a Hashad al-Shabaab base near Mosul in northern Iraq. The Iraqi security agencies have confirmed the strike, which targeted the former paramilitary coalition's facility south of the city. Details are still emerging as authorities and witnesses monitor the area for any casualties or further developments. We'll bring you more on that as soon as we get further information. We turn over to some further updates, and according to reports, one person has been killed by shrapnel in Israel after Iran fired missiles towards its territory. Sirens wailed across central Israel as multiple blast sites were reported. At a construction site, rescuers found a man with severe shrapnel wounds, and despite urgent medical efforts, he later died. Another man was seriously injured and rushed to hospital for treatment after sustaining similar wounds. Meanwhile, in southern Lebanon, the health ministry says Israeli airstrikes has killed 2 paramedics and injured 6 in separate attacks in Tyre and Jawaya. The ministry accused the Israeli army of targeting ambulance teams amid the broader conflict. Further updates coming out of Lebanon, where its parliament has voted to extend its own mandate for 2 more years, postponing elections that were scheduled for May this year. According to the Speaker's office, 76 of the 128 lawmakers supported the extension, a decision coming just days after Hezbollah launched rockets and drones into Israel, prompting heavy retaliatory strikes across Lebanon. This is not the first time lawmakers have extended their term, with a similar move made in 2009 during the Syria conflict, citing security concerns as reasons to delay elections. Joining us now is Saul Sadka, a political commentator. Saul, what do you make of this decision? Is that the correct move by the Lebanese parliament?
Yes, the only way that Lebanon will ever see peace is if they finally take control of their own military. They can't have it that their country is full of different armies all fighting and competing with each other for the use of force. The core element that a state needs to have to be a real state, after all, is what they call a monopoly of force. You can't have other people with paramilitary organizations running around in your countryside, as they have done for the past 50 years. Civil wars and wars with Israel and fighting with Syria and Iranian intervention to destabilize their country, to turn it into a weapon against Israel. All this has turned Lebanon from the jewel of the Middle East, a Mediterranean coast rivaling France, beautiful cities, scenery, skiing, forests, agriculture, banking. Lebanon had all this stuff, and it's all gone. There's nothing left. Just in the past 6 years, to the start of the corona pandemic, and after their port was blown to bits by discarded Hezbollah munitions, effectively, they have lost 20% of their population to emigration. The economy there is in the dumps and will only continue to stay that way until they manage to finally get rid of these people. What the Americans and the Israelis are currently doing in Iran to weaken, or hopefully totally dislodge the IRGC, will finally perhaps give them the opportunity to stand up to the Iranians who have been intervening to their detriment in their economy and in their society. And good luck to them.
Saul Sadka, thank you so much for taking the time and joining us. Always a great pleasure to speak to you. Well, that is all that we have time for this hour. Keep watching NewsX World for more international news updates.